Before. There is a version of you that existed before the first job. You remember him the way you remember a place you lived as a child. The general shape of it, the feeling, but the specific details going soft at the edges. He was 16. He played football on a dirt pitch outside Apatzingán every Saturday morning. His mother made him eat before he left the house. He was not exceptional. He was not nothing. He existed in the ordinary middle of things and had no particular idea what his life would become. That version of you ended on a specific date that you know exactly and will never say out loud. Everything since has been the other version, the one you became, the one this story is about. You want whoever is listening to understand that these are two different people who happen to share a body. You need that to be understood before anything else is said. It doesn't make anything better, it's just true. The recruitment. You were 17 when a man named Chucho approached you outside the pitch after a Saturday game. Chucho was 24 and drove a truck that cost more than everything on your street combined. He watched you play. He said you were fast. He said fast was useful. He didn't explain for what. He handed you a phone number and said call if you want work. You went home. You ate dinner. You looked at the number for 3 days. On the 4th day, you called. The first job was not violence. They never start with violence. You drove a truck from Apatzingán to Zamora. You delivered it to an address and walked away. 3,000 pesos cash. The second job was the same. The third job, there was a man in the truck's cargo area, zip-tied, blindfolded, silent in the way people are silent when they are beyond fear and into something else. You drove, you delivered, you were paid. You told yourself you were a driver. That distinction lasted 2 more jobs. Then Chucho sat across from you and told you what came next. You could say no. He said it clearly. You could say no. But the truck with the man in the cargo area was not a thing you could unknow, and Chucho knew that you knew that. So the no was available in theory only. You said yes. You were 17 years old, and you said yes, and the version of you on the football pitch on Saturday mornings ended that afternoon in a plastic chair in a room in Apatzingán. The training. They don't hand you a weapon and point you at someone. There is a process. You spend 4 months with a man named El Profesor, who is 40 years old and has the flat affect of someone who has entirely separated action from feeling. He teaches you weapons, handling, maintenance, accuracy. He teaches you approach, how to move in public without being remembered, how to follow someone without pattern, how to read a location for entry and exit before you are ever in it. He teaches you what he calls the discipline of patience, which means you do not act until the conditions are exactly right, regardless of how long that takes. He teaches you the most important rule last, on the final day, in the same flat voice he uses for everything. You never think about after. You think about before and during. After takes care of itself. You think about what that means on the drive home. You think about it for a long time. Eventually, you understand he isn't talking about escape. He's talking about something else entirely. Something you won't fully understand until the 3rd or 4th job, when you're sitting alone somewhere and the after arrives and you learn what it costs. The first job. The target is a man in his 40s, a regional police commander in Colima who has been providing intelligence to a rival cartel. The organization has verified this through 3 separate sources. You are told this not because it is your business, but because they have learned that context helps the first time. The photograph shows a man with a thick mustache and reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He looks like someone's uncle. He looks like someone who coaches youth football on Saturdays. You study the photograph for 2 days. You study his route from home to the state police headquarters. You identify the location. You wait. On the 3rd morning, he stops at the same cafe at the same time. You are already there. You are nobody, a young man eating breakfast, unremarkable, forgotten before he's noticed. He sits 2 tables away. He orders coffee and reads his phone. He looks tired. That detail stays with you longer than anything else about that morning. He looked tired. You wait until he stands to leave. What happens next takes less time than it takes to describe it. You are on a motorcycle before anyone in the cafe understands what they heard. You are in Guadalajara by afternoon. You sit in a safe house and eat rice and stare at the wall. The after arrives. El Professor was right that it costs something. He just didn't tell you it compounds. What the job actually is. People think it is the violence. The violence is the smallest part. The violence is seconds inside days of everything else. The job is patience. The job is invisibility. The job is the absolute suppression of anything that makes you a person rather than a function. You do not have routines, because routines create patterns, and patterns create exposure. You do not have a permanent address. You move between safe houses on a schedule only you know, changed without notice, chosen for exits rather than comfort. You do not have relationships in the conventional sense. You have a woman in Guadalajara you see when work allows. She knows what you are in the way that women in this world know things, completely and without acknowledgement. You do not discuss it. You eat dinner together and watch television and sleep in the same bed, and in the morning you leave, and neither of you knows when you'll be back. You have learned to hold everything lightly, people, places, objects, nothing that can be taken from you because you have already let go of it. El Professor didn't teach you this. This one you learned yourself. This one cost the most. The reputation. You have been working for 4 years. You don't know the exact number of jobs. You stopped counting at 11 because the counting felt like something a specific kind of person does, and you didn't want to be that person. The organization knows the number. The organization tracks everything. What you know is that your name, not your real name, your work name, El Silencioso, which you didn't choose and find faintly ridiculous, moves through certain conversations with a weight you can feel even when you're not in the room. Chucho tells you this with obvious pride, as if it reflects on him, which it does, because he found you on a football pitch in Apatzingán. You have been requested by name for specific operations. Regional commanders call for you when the target is complicated, when previous attempts have failed, when the window is narrow and the margin for error is 0. You were sent to Tijuana for a target who has survived 2 previous attempts and now moves with 6 bodyguards and an armored vehicle. You study him for 3 weeks. You find the one moment in his routine where the bodyguards are a step behind. 30 seconds of exposure every Tuesday morning. You wait 4 Tuesdays. On the 5th Tuesday, the conditions are exactly right. You are on a plane back to Guadalajara before the news breaks. The regional commander calls Chucho. Chucho relays the message. You are the best they have. You feel nothing about this that you can name. That is its own kind of answer. The cost running. Your mother calls every Sunday. She lives in Apatzingán, in the same house where you grew up. You bought it for her 2 years ago, paid off the mortgage entirely, renovated the kitchen, hired someone to fix the roof that had been leaking since you were a child. She doesn't know where the money came from. She believes you work in private security for a transport company. She is 58 years old, and she is not a foolish woman, and you have considered many times that she knows more than she says, the way mothers know things, and chooses not to say it for reasons of her own. She asks every Sunday if you are eating. You say yes. She asks if you are safe. You say yes. You have been saying yes your whole adult life to that question, and the word has developed a texture in your mouth that you can feel, the shape of a word that has been used to mean its opposite for so long it has forgotten what it originally meant. Your younger brother finished university last year, engineering. He got a job with a firm in Monterey. He calls you less than your mother does. When he calls, there is something careful in his voice, a controlled distance, the way people talk when they have decided not to ask a question they already know the answer to. You respect this. You love him for it, actually. His careful distance is the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you. The job that stays. Every job stays in some form. Most settle into a place you don't visit. One doesn't. 18 months ago, a target in Manzanillo. Mid-level CJNG lieutenant who has been skimming and talking. Standard assignment, clean intelligence, clear window. You arrive at the location. You wait. The target emerges from his building. He has a child with him. A girl, maybe 4 years old, holding his hand, eating something from a small paper bag. This was not in the intelligence. This is not supposed to be here. The rule is unambiguous. Civilians, family, children, never. You abort. You return to the safe house. You report the situation. The organization sends someone else 3 days later. The job gets done when the man is alone. The correct decision was made by everyone involved. You know this. You replay it anyway. Not the job. The moment before. The girl in the street eating from the paper bag. Her hand in his hand. 4 years old and no idea. No idea about anything. You replay it at 3 a.m. in safe houses in cities across 3 states. You don't know her name. You never knew her name. That is somehow the part that stays the hardest. What's coming? You are 24 years old. You have been doing this for 7 years. In this profession, that is a geological age. Men in this job do not have careers. They have runs, intense, compressed, terminal. The DEA has a file that includes a work name you've never spoken aloud and a physical description that could be 300 men in Jalisco. That's the good news. The bad news is that every organization eventually generates an informant, and every informant eventually gives something they didn't mean to give, and the chain of that something leads somewhere unpredictable. You have a plan. 2 passports, 1 identity built over 3 years in a name connected to nothing, money in accounts in Panama, and 1 in a credit union in Texas under a name that has never been spoken in Mexico, a contact in Guadalajara who can move you north in 48 hours if the call comes. You have built this exit with the same patience and precision El Profesor taught you. The difference between a good job and a bad job is preparation. You apply the same standard to leaving as you applied to everything else. The plan is good. Plans are good until the moment they're needed. You know this. You check the passports every month anyway. You check the accounts. You run the exit in your head the way you used to run approaches, before and during, never after. After takes care of itself. El Profesor's last lesson, the only one that was ever really about you.